I came home on a Tuesday at 7 in the morning, same as every other morning for the past 4 years. 10 hours on the sort line at the FedEx hub out by the airport. My hands smelled like cardboard and the grease they use on the conveyor belts. That smell gets into your skin, under your nails, and no amount of soap takes it out completely. You just live with it. I'd been lifting irregulars all night, the oversized packages that don't fit the automated system, and my lower back had that deep, hot ache that tells you you're 35 and not 22 anymore. I pulled into the driveway of our duplex on a quiet street in Cooper Young. The neighborhood was already warming up. Memphis in July, you step outside at 6 a.m., and the air is already thick enough to chew. By noon, the asphalt goes soft. The cicadas were still going from the night before, that electric hum that's the background noise of every summer I've ever lived through. I was thinking about sleep, that's all. Just the pillow, the fan on medium, the blackout curtains Jessica put up when I started nights. Maybe 6 hours before Carter woke up from his nap and wanted to play baseball in the yard. I got to the front door and Don Hutchins was standing there. Don lived in the other half of the duplex with his wife Mary. 72 years old, retired Memphis PD, 30 years on the job. The kind of man who mows his lawn at 7 a.m. sharp on Saturdays and has the same haircut he had in 1985. He and Mary had been there longer than us. They kept to themselves mostly, but in a friendly way. Not cold, just old school. Don would wave from his porch. Mary would bring over banana bread at Christmas. She babysat Carter sometimes when our schedules got tangled, and Carter loved her because she let him stay up 15 minutes past bedtime and didn't tell. But Don had never come to my door at 7 in the morning, not once in 2 years. He was standing on the other side of the threshold, and his face was the color of a brick. Not angry, struggling, like a man trying to lift something too heavy for him and knowing he has to do it anyway. "Cole," he said, "I need to talk to you." "Come in, Don." No, I'll say it here." He put his hand on the doorframe. He was wearing a white undershirt and khaki pants, like he'd gotten dressed in a hurry. "This ain't easy. I've been going back and forth on it for 2 weeks, and Mary's been going back and forth longer than that. But I was a police officer for 30 years, and I've seen what happens when people don't say the hard thing, and it's always worse." I stood there with my lunchbox in my hand. My thermos was in the other hand. I could hear the shower running inside, Jessica getting ready for her shift at the Peabody. "What's going on, Don?" He looked at the ground, then at me, then at the ground again. Then he just said it. "Mary's been hearing things through the wall, Cole. A man's voice, late at night, on the nights you're working." Something happened in my chest. Not a crack, not a snap. More like when you're carrying a heavy box and you feel your grip start to slip, and for 1 second you're holding it, and the next second you know you're not going to be holding it much longer. "This wasn't the first time," Don said. His voice was shaking slightly, the way old men's voices shake when they're angry but keeping it inside. "Mary's heard it at least 4 or 5 times over the past several weeks. She kept hoping she was wrong. That maybe it was the TV or a friend visiting or something. But it's not the TV, Cole. We both know what it sounds like when it's the TV." I looked at Don Hutchins. He looked back at me. 30 years of police work in those eyes. He wasn't guessing. He wasn't stirring up trouble. He was doing what he thought was right, and it was costing him. "Okay," I said. "Thank you, Don." "Cole, thank you." I stepped back. I closed the door. Gently, I didn't slam it. I set my lunchbox on the hallway table. I set my thermos next to it. Then I sat down on the hallway floor, right there on the thin carpet that was peeling up at the edges, and I looked at the wall. The clock above the kitchen doorway read 7:12. Carter was asleep in his room, 15 feet from where I sat. 5 years old. Slept like a bag of cement. You could run a vacuum cleaner next to his head and he'd roll over and keep dreaming. He was obsessed with baseball that summer. Had a little plastic bat and a tee in the backyard and would swing at that ball until his arms gave out. He wanted to be a Cardinal. I kept telling him, "We live in Memphis, buddy. There's no Cardinals here." And he'd look at me like I was the one who didn't understand. The shower was still running. Jessica was in there, probably doing her hair, that whole routine she had. The shampoo, the conditioner, the thing she did with a towel wrapped up on her head. 32 years old. Pretty, in a way that wasn't quiet. She walked into a room and people noticed. She worked the front desk at the Peabody Hotel on Union Avenue, and she was good at it because she could make anyone feel welcome. Tourists, businessmen, brides with nervous breakdowns. Jessica could handle all of them with a smile that looked completely real. I sat on that floor and I noticed something I'd never paid attention to before. Her phone was on the nightstand, plugged into the charger. I could see it through the open bedroom door. The screen was dark. She was in the shower. I could pick it up. I could look. Right now, this second, I could walk in there and pick up that phone and know everything. I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe because Dawn's words were still too fresh and I couldn't think clearly. Maybe because some part of me, the part that played linebacker in high school, the part that learned to read a play before the snap, knew that reacting too fast is how you get burned. You watch the quarterback's eyes. You wait for him to commit. Then you move. I filed the phone away, put it in a drawer in my head and closed it. I heard the shower turn off. I got up off the floor, walked to the bathroom in the hallway, the one Carter used, the one with the rubber ducks on the edge of the tub, and started the water. I took off my work clothes. I stood under the hot stream and let it hit the back of my neck. By the time I came out, Jessica was dressed. Hair done, makeup done, that perfume she wore. Something with jasmine in it, or what she told me was jasmine. She was in the bedroom putting on earrings. She saw me in the doorway, smiled, walked over, and kissed me on the forehead. "Get some sleep, babe," she said. "You look wiped out." Long night. The irregulars again? Yeah, she squeezed my arm. "I'll drop Carter at daycare on my way in. There's leftover pasta in the fridge if you wake up hungry." "Thanks." She gathered her things. Keys, purse, sunglasses. She went into Carter's room and I heard her talking to him softly, getting him up, getting him dressed. He was cranky. He's not a morning person, same as me. She brought him out and he was rubbing his eyes and holding his stuffed dog, the one with the missing ear he called Biscuit. "Say bye to Daddy." "Bye, Daddy." "Bye, buddy. Have a good day." They left. The door closed. The house went quiet. I lay down in the bed. The sheets smelled like her perfume. I lay on my back and stared at the ceiling. There was a brown water stain up there shaped like the state of Kentucky. I'd been meaning to fix it for months. I didn't cry. I didn't punch anything. I didn't call anyone. I just lay there with my eyes open and my hands on my chest and I started to think. I couldn't sleep. I tried for maybe 2 hours and then I gave up. My body was exhausted, but my mind was running laps, and every lap came back to the same place. Don Hutchins, standing on my doorstep with his face the color of a brick, saying things I couldn't unhear. At noon, I got up, got dressed, and drove to Germantown. My brother Wyatt lives in a ranch house on a cul-de-sac out there, the kind of street where everybody has a riding mower and a basketball hoop over the garage. He's 38, works HVAC, installs and repairs heating and cooling systems for residential and commercial buildings. Big hands, bad knees, a sunburn that never fully goes away. He got divorced himself 3 years back. His wife had left him for a guy she met at her CrossFit gym, which Wyatt still can't mention without his jaw going tight. He got full custody of his 2 girls. He knows what this road looks like because he walked it already. I pulled into his driveway and he was in the garage working on a condenser unit, grease up to his elbows. He looked up and saw my face and put down his wrench. "What happened?" he said. I told him. All of it. Dawn, Mary, the voice through the walls, 3 or 4 times in the last month, always on nights I was working. I told him about the phone on the nightstand that I didn't pick up. I told him about Jessica kissing me on the forehead and saying, "Get some sleep, babe." Wyatt didn't interrupt. He listened with his arms crossed and his eyes on the concrete floor of the garage. When I finished, he was quiet for about 10 seconds. Then he looked up at me, and his face was something I recognized. Not sadness, not shock. Cold fury. The kind that doesn't burn hot and flame out. The kind that settles in the bones and stays. "Don't do anything stupid," he said. "Don't do anything yet." "I'm not going to." "I mean it, Cole. Don't talk to her. Don't accuse her. Don't touch her phone. Don't pack your bags. Don't do a single thing until you've called Ryan Kessler." "Who?" "My divorce lawyer. The one who got me the girls. His office is in Midtown, over on Madison. I'll text you the number. Call him tomorrow. Today, you go home, you sleep, and you act like everything's normal." "I don't know if I can do that." "You can. You played ball, man. You know how to take a hit and stay on your feet. This is the same thing. You take the hit, you stay standing, and you wait for your turn to move." He walked over and put his hand on my shoulder. Didn't say anything else. Didn't need to. I drove home. The next morning I called Kessler. His secretary put me through after I said Wyatt Dawson's name, which tells you something about how that relationship works. Wyatt is the kind of client lawyers remember. Ryan Kessler had a voice like gravel in a cement mixer. 40 years old, solo practitioner, office on Madison Avenue in Midtown Memphis. Wyatt told me later that Kessler used to work at a big firm downtown and left because he got tired of partners telling him to play nice. He doesn't play nice. He plays to win. "Tell me what you know," Kessler said. I told him. "And you haven't confronted her?" "No." "Good. Don't. Tennessee is a fault divorce state, Mr. Dawson. Adultery is grounds. If we prove it, and I mean prove it, not suggest it, not imply it, it affects alimony, it can influence custody, and it changes the entire landscape of your case. Your neighbor's testimony is strong, especially if he's a retired police officer. But I want more." "Like what?" "I want you to catch her. I want one clean moment where you witness it with your own eyes. Do not break into her phone. Tennessee has wiretapping laws. Do not hire a private investigator without talking to me first. Do not confront her. Do not threaten her. Do not move out of the house. Right now, you live there. You stay there. You go to work. You come home. You are a stable, employed, present father. That's your brand, and we're going to sell it." "My brand?" In a divorce, Mr. Dawson, everyone has a brand. Yours is the hard-working night shift father who never missed a day. Hers is about to become something else. But we need evidence, real evidence. Can you get it? I can get it. Then get it, and call me when you have it. That night I went to work. 9 p.m., same as always. Clocked in, changed into my steel toes, walked onto the sort line, lifted boxes, scanned labels, moved pallets. The same work I'd done 1,000 nights before. At break, I sat in the employee lounge with a cup of coffee that tasted like it was brewed during the Clinton administration, and I logged into our joint bank account on my phone. I wasn't looking for anything specific. I was just looking. And there it was. A pattern I'd never noticed because I'd never had a reason to look. Charges at a restaurant called Magnolia, down on South Main. A nice place. The kind of place with cloth napkins and a wine list, not the kind of place you go alone. 7 charges over the last 2 months. Always on nights I was working. Always between $80 and $120. Dinner for 2. Jessica never mentioned going out. I sat there in that break room with the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead and the vending machine humming in the corner, and I felt something shift. Not anger, not yet. Something colder. Like watching the last tumbler click in a lock you've been trying to pick. The next day, I went to see Dawn and Mary. Jessica was at work. I knocked on their side of the duplex at 2 in the afternoon. Mary answered. She had her reading glasses pushed up on her forehead and a cup of tea in her hand, and when she saw me, her eyes went glassy. "Oh, Cole, come in, sweetheart. Come in." They sat me down at their kitchen table. The place was immaculate, the way old people's houses are, where everything has a spot and nothing's been moved in years. Dawn had a shelf of police commendations in the hallway. Mary had a cross-stitch on the wall that said, "The Lord is my shepherd." There was a plate of shortbread cookies between us that nobody touched. "I need to ask you both some questions," I said, "and I need you to be straight with me." Mary looked at Dawn. Dawn looked at me and nodded once. "How many times?" Mary's hands were shaking around her teacup. "At least 4, maybe 5, over about 6 weeks." "What times?" "Always late, 11:30 at night. I'm up. You know I don't sleep well. I hear a car pull up. Then the front door. Then..." She stopped. She looked at the tablecloth. "I hear a man's voice, not loud, talking, laughing. And then, other sounds. Through the wall. Our bedrooms share a wall, Cole. You know that." "What time does he leave?" "Before 3. I hear the car start. Every time." I turned to Dawn. "Dawn, you were a cop for 30 years. If you had to testify to what you heard, under oath in front of a judge, would you?" Dawn's jaw was set. His eyes were steady. "In a heartbeat, son." Mary started to cry. Quiet tears, the kind that come with apologies. I almost didn't tell Dawn. I kept hoping I was wrong. I kept thinking, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's her sister, maybe. But I knew. I knew the first time. And I'm so sorry, Cole. I'm so sorry we didn't say something sooner. I reached across the table and put my hand on hers. You said it when it mattered. That's all I needed. I spent the next week being the best husband in the state of Tennessee. I brought Jessica coffee in the morning when she woke up. I asked about her day. I played with Carter in the yard while she watched from the porch. I did the dishes without being asked. I was pleasant, easy, boring. The kind of man who gives you no reason to suspect he's about to take your whole life apart. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Not the acting, the silence. Sitting across from her at dinner while Carter talked about his day at daycare, watching her smile, watching her laugh, watching her be the woman I thought I knew, and holding all that knowledge inside my chest like a swallowed stone. Every time she touched me, I wanted to flinch. Every time she said she loved me, I wanted to ask her which version of her was saying it. But I didn't. I held it. Because this wasn't about feelings anymore. This was about Carter. I noticed something that week. Jessica started volunteering for the evening shift at the Peabody more often. She said the hotel was short-staffed for summer, which is true. Summer is peak season for Memphis tourism. But she was asking for specific nights. My work nights. And I filed that away too. On a Tuesday night, 1 week after Dawn knocked on my door, I went to work at 9 p.m. I worked the sort line for an hour and 45 minutes. At 10:45, I walked up to my foreman, a stocky guy named Pete Garza, with a mustache and a cowboy's hat he wore against regulation. "Pete, I'm not feeling right. Stomach's tearing me up." Pete looked at me like I'd spoken Portuguese. In 4 years, I had never once called out, left early, or asked for a break outside the schedule. I'd worked through a flu that put 3 other guys on their backs. I'd worked the day after my father's funeral. Pete Garza had never seen me less than 100%. "Jesus, Dawson, go home, you look rough." "Appreciate it." I clocked out. I walked to my truck. I drove, but not home. I parked 2 blocks away in the lot of a Baptist church that was dark and empty at that hour. I turned off the engine. I sat in the truck for about 10 minutes, watching the street through my windshield. Then I got out and walked. Cooper Young at 11 p.m. in the summer. The bars on the main drag had people spilling out onto the sidewalks, but our street was residential, quiet. You could hear the cicadas and the occasional dog barking and the bass from somebody's stereo a block over. The streetlights threw pools of yellow on the sidewalk. I came around the corner and I saw it. Parked in front of our duplex, right there at the curb, casual as you please. A silver Honda Civic. I stopped walking. I stood there on the sidewalk in the dark and I looked at that car, and the stone in my chest got heavier. I crossed the yard to Don and Mary's front door. I knocked soft. Don answered in about 15 seconds. He was already up, already dressed. The man was 72 years old and he moved like he'd been waiting for this. "Don," I said, "I need you to be awake for the next 10 minutes. I may need a witness." He looked at me. He looked past me at the silver Civic. He nodded once. "I'm right here." Then I did something I'd thought about all week. I took out my phone, opened the voice memo app, and hit record. I put the phone in the breast pocket of my shirt with the microphone facing out. Tennessee is a one-party consent state, which means I can legally record any conversation I'm a part of without telling the other person. I was about to be a party to a conversation. I went around the back of the duplex, through the little gate in the chain-link fence, across the shared yard where Carter and I played baseball on weekends, to the kitchen door, the one we called the fire exit, even though it was just a regular door with a sticky knob. I knew every inch of that house. 2 years of living there will teach you where the floors speak and where they keep quiet. The loose board was by the fridge. I stepped over it. Through the kitchen, where the dishes from dinner were still in the drying rack. Into the hallway, where the carpet muffled everything. Carter's room was on the left. I opened his door. He was out. Flat on his back, mouth open, arms flung wide like he'd been dropped from the sky. Biscuit. The one-eared dog was wedged between his arm and his body. He was wearing his Cardinals pajamas. The ones I told him were geographically inappropriate, and he wore anyway out of pure 5-year-old stubbornness. I lifted him. He weighed nothing. His arms went around my neck automatically, the way kids do when they're in that deep sleep where the world could end and they wouldn't notice. His head settled into the crook of my shoulder. He smelled like baby shampoo and grass. I carried him out the back door, across the yard, to Don and Mary's door. Mary was already there. She was in a housecoat with her glasses on, and she didn't say a word. She just opened her arms and I passed my son to her, and she took him inside, and she closed the door. I stood in the yard for a moment. The cicadas were screaming. The air was so humid it was like breathing through a wet towel. I could see the light on in our bedroom window through the thin curtains. But what happened next? That's on my new channel. I put a lot of work into it, and part 2 of this story is already waiting for you there. Link in the pinned comment. Go watch it. And there's a lot more new stuff already up besides just this story.